Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Lensing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight. After watching you were watching a rousing Cleveland Cavaliers victory over the New York Knicks. I was forced, due to the NBA's streaming technology, to watch the game on the ESPN Gamecast since I'm not going to
Well,
pay for
I mean,
my
it's just like
twelve
six.
twelve streaming subscription. I
Well,
passed
it's
on
like
paying.
$6. It's like $6 a month, Mike. Come on, you gotta have to pony up for the playoffs
No,
because
all those games are. They're not going to have playoff games on Peacock, are they? Yeah, this league, I might be out. I might be out. We might have to start doing, I don't know, a soccer podcast or something. I don't know.
soccer. We'll talk about water bottles the whole time. I'm sure. So, yeah, the Cavs looked good. I'm sure we'll talk about it with maybe one of my questions for you
All right.
tonight, Mike.
Okay. Sounds good. So we decided that we are going to bring back our little game from, I don't know, a couple weeks ago
It was
of
a couple months ago, Mike. It was a
a
couple
couple
months
months
ago.
ago,
It
a
was when
couple
the
months
Clippers.
ago.
It was when the Clippers were on the rise. Like this was
Okay.
back. Like this is like this is December before we even thought that James Harden was going to be a Cavalier. It was December.
Okay. Well, regardless. All right. So go ahead, and do you want to go first? You want me to go
Yeah,
first?
I'll go first. I'll go first.
All right.
Okay, here we go. I had to wait to make sure following the Cavs game tonight. Following the Cavs victory tonight, the Cleveland Cavaliers are listed on FanDuel Sports and on DraftKings as the odds-on favorite to win the Eastern Conference. Before tonight's game against the Knicks, it was a dead heat with them in Detroit. Are you buying the Cavs as the favorite to win the East?
No, I don't. I can't. But here's the thing. I don't buy the Cavs, but I also, as I've said numerous times over the last 2.5 months, I don't really believe in any of these teams in the Eastern Conference. And for me, it just comes down to, like I said, I don't, I just can't see the scenario where any of these teams is in the NBA Finals. And I know one of them is going to get there, but when it's June and one of these teams is playing in the NBA Finals, it's going to be an incredible story of how any of these teams made it. Detroit, obviously inexperienced. Well, here's my can I piggyback off of your question and ask mine, and it'll kind of give us a way to talk about this in a
Okay.
more coherent way. So my question or my thought is, are you buying any of these Eastern Conference teams despite the fact that they have a glaring weakness? So what I wanted to talk about is the top 4 teams in the East. What is their glaring weakness that would prevent them from making it to the NBA Finals? So I'm going to start with the Cavs, since that was the one that you asked me about, and then we can dive into the other 3 teams to sort of talk through what I was saying.
Okay.
So
Sure.
let's start with the Cavs. The Cavs' glaring weakness is physical and mental toughness. And
Wow, Mike, I thought for sure you were going to say James Harden's on the team. I thought, I
well,
thought, I thought for sure James Harden being on the team was going to be the automatic outster, Mike.
well, that speaks to, see, I don't think this team was set up to be an NBA Finals team prior to James Harden's arrival, and I certainly do not think that James Harden's arrival has bolstered their playoff readiness when it comes to this particular season. So, I mean, when you look at this team, and granted, tonight, excellent home victory against the Knicks, who are at this point suiting up everybody, I guess, except for Deuce McBride. So Knicks at full strength, Cavs at full strength as well.
Mom, Max Struess is going to come back. Mike, what are you talking about? Full strength? Give me a break.
I'm not.
That guy is
No,
not playing. That guy is not playing this season.
no. Max Struess will not be back this season. I would be very surprised if he ever gets back at any point during this particular season. So I think the Cavs, despite the win tonight, which is a very good win against the New York Knicks, I still go back to the game on Sunday where you've been playing well. Granted, it's the third game in 4 nights, and it's not even a
Hey,
night because they played at 1 o'clock
that,
in the afternoon.
that's terrible. That's terrible, by the way, NBA. That's terrible.
It is, for sure.
And both teams that played on Sunday that lost before 6 o'clock were on 3 games and 4 night stretches, and visiting teams. That's garbage. That's
And
garbage.
and so maybe I'm casting aspersions where I shouldn't, but I just know if the tables were reversed and the Cavs were at home and 3 of their best 7 players, including their best 2 players, were out of the game, I would feel like the Cavs would have had no chance whatsoever
Wait,
to
are you
win a game
saying
like that.
Jay Will is the second best player on the Thunder?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think
Maybe not
Holmgren.
this.
I think Holmgren's more
No,
integral. I think Holmgren's more important to that team.
no, no way.
Okay.
Look at their performance in the finals last year. It's not even in comparison. Chet's a good defender, I guess, but I think he's dramatically. Here's my opinion. I think Chet Holmgren is dramatically overrated as a basketball player. I just think offensively, he's. I mean, yeah. Granted,
Mike's
he's.
Western Conference. Are you buying it? Chet Holmgren is overrated.
I am not buying Chet Holmgren in any way,
Okay.
shape, or form. As
Okay.
he's overrated in my opinion. I just think
Okay.
that
That's fair. That's
I
listen.
don't
You're
I don't know what
entitled
he
to your
does.
opinion.
I don't know what he does offensively. He's good defensively, but on offense, he's he's at best your third best player at best. And I think if Oklahoma City didn't have the wealth of riches that they have around that team, I think his lack of offensive firepower would be even more dramatic. But anyway, I guess my point is that if the Cavs were hosting Oklahoma City and Oklahoma City was at full strength and the Cavs had Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Tyson sitting out the game, I would feel zero confidence that the Cavaliers would win that game or even be competitive. And then to come out right from the beginning, and again, early start to the game, I get it. 3 games in 4 nights, I get it. But you can't come out and get down 27-5 in a game that is against an opponent that potentially you could be seeing in the NBA Finals that's without Alex Caruso, without Shea, and without Jalen Williams. I can't accept that. And granted, they bounced back and came all the way back to take the lead, but the fact that they weren't able to finish it off, I just think it speaks to the mental and physical toughness of this team. In that game, felt like if you're Evan Mobley, and I know Mobley's coming back from an ankle injury, if you're Jared Allen, who I know has played very well and had a good game again tonight,
Great third quarter. Great third quarter from Jared Allen tonight.
those 2 guys have to at some point be able to impose their will. If you're going to have both of them on the floor at the same time with the theoretical too big lineup, that too big lineup has to be able to in some way physically dominate. And I just don't feel like either of those guys are ready mentally or physically to dominate in big games. They just aren't. And then that doesn't even take into account playoff James Harden and what that particular situation means to the Cavs come playoff time. And again, maybe it won't be as big of a factor if Mitchell is still your number one guy and you have some of the other offensive firepower that the Cavs do have when they're playing well, that maybe if you just get playmaking James Harden in the playoffs, that you can mitigate him not being Rockets level James Harden on the system where if he goes bad, your entire team is completely shot. But I still feel like, and we've seen it to this point, that Harden has very quickly become an integral part of what they're trying to do, right? You mentioned it when you sent me the text that
Yeah, it's
you're
yeah,
screen
yeah. I mean,
you're
they
getting
were just hunting. They were hunting. They were doing exactly what the Knicks and the Pacers did last year. Look, Knicks a few years ago, the Pacers last year. They just screened and hunted Garland all the time. Well, what did the Cavs do in the second quarter or end of the first, beginning of the second? I think it was they just they just basically said, okay, well, we're just going to hunt Jalen Brunson with James Harden, and he's going to get to the lane. He's going to score. He had 2 floaters, and he had a nice assist that should have been a wide open 3. I don't remember who missed it, but I mean, I think that my biggest thing so far with the Cavs is I will reiterate, I did not realize how good of a passer James Harden is. Like, I know the one year he led the league in assists, but he just dominates with the passing. Some of the passes he makes, I don't know, my dad and I used to always talk about how LeBron would make, like, sometimes the players wouldn't even know the ball was coming to them, and it took them some time to figure it out. There's definitely some of that going on with Harden. Like, he's making some passes that some guys do not expect is coming. I think my biggest red flag, kind of from what I saw tonight, happened multiple times, and I think you kind of goes along with what you're saying, the physicality. There were multiple times that Mobley had a small guy posted up today, and he did not attack the small guy like with any kind of force. Like Josh Hart, and I can't remember who the other one was. It was Josh Hart, one possession, and it was just multiple times. So I don't know if that comes with, like, he's still worried about the cat. And he took a pretty good fall today on a play, on a contest, but he just isn't willing to attack that, and he needs to do that. Now, I will say he hit 2 threes to start the game. He's spreading the floor. He's defensively, he's still like the best defender on the Cavs for sure. Okay, but we've got to. I don't know what we've got to do to get him to want to attack. And I think the big games are coming. Okay, we got 2 games against Detroit in the next week and a half. Okay, ideally, they already beat Detroit once this year. I would love to at least split these 2 games, right? If we split the 2 games, I think we could feel pretty happy with that. Obviously, we'd like to ideally win both of them, but I think a more realistic goal probably is to split them. Then there's no beef stew, so I need to see these 2 guys. Allen played out of his mind tonight. I know he was absent from the game on Sunday, but he's been playing so well. And they ran a stat, Jared Allen's stats since James Harden. He's gone up 4.5 points per game. He went from shooting 60%. He's been shooting 76% from the field, just completely unlocked. And Harden said it 2 games ago. He said, "I did not realize how good Jared Allen is." And just the spacing. So I cautiously optimistic is the word I'm going to say. I like a lot of what I've seen. They're still, I think they've had 1 practice now, Mike. So I think there's still some things to work on. They're kind of figuring stuff out on the fly. The Knicks were terrible from behind the arc tonight. A lot. I wouldn't say that a lot of their misses were open. I would say probably less than half. It wasn't we've seen teams that are just miserable from wide. There were some good contests. I think the key in the second half was the Knicks tried to make a run, and Jalen Tyson, who played terrible in the first half, had a great second half. The closing lineup, Mike, before they pulled everyone, and this is just interesting to me, was Mitchell, Harden, Keon Ellis, Jalen Tyson, and Jared Allen. And then with 4 minutes left, they took Ellis out and put Mobley in. So Jalen Tyson went into that role. Dean Wade, Mike, you don't know this because you didn't watch the game. Do you know what Dean Wade's defensive assignment was tonight, most of the night? He was guarding Brunson most of the night. And he was all up in Brunson's business. And it was great. Brunson was so frustrated tonight. He was terrible. He was so bad. He was 4 of 13 at one point and couldn't make. Was splitting free throws. Dean Wade, the Wolfman? I guess they play the Wolf song when he hits a 3. Was in his head. I can't believe that happened. But yeah. So listen, I'm cautiously optimistic that the Cavs are going to continue to play at a high level. They have the easiest schedule in the NBA the rest of the season, and that included tonight's game. They have 4 games against teams that are in the playoffs. I think the rest of them are something I saw that, and I said, that can't be true. And then I looked at it, and they said 4 games against teams that are in the playoffs that have a record above 500. So that means that some of the teams that are in the play-in we might be playing against. But for the most part, I mean, our schedule is a cakewalk the rest of the way. So like you got the 2 Detroit games. I think we have a Celtics game, right? A Celtics game, maybe. It's just I think they should be the 2 seed. I think by the end of this, just because of who they're going to play. I just don't see. I don't see anything else, and I know we're just that's just one team. Do you want me to jump to another team and then you piggyback off them since you started with the Cavs, or
Well,
not?
let me address a couple of things you said with the Cavs real quick.
Okay.
So one, I agree that I think that they probably will be the 2 seed. I think that speaks to what you talked about in terms of
Can they catch
Harden.
Detroit, Mike? If they
I
beat
don't think
Detroit,
so.
if they beat Detroit both times, can they catch Detroit because of the cake schedule they have the rest of the way?
It's hard to say. I think they're too far behind. I think Detroit is playing too well in the regular season. We'll talk about what I think Detroit's potential pitfalls are come playoff time. But I think Detroit's playing well enough that even if the Cavs were to somehow beat them twice, I think right now going into tonight, they were, 6 games behind, maybe 7. That's a lot to make up in the 25 or so games that the Cavs have left on their schedule. I think it's going to be really tough. Is it possible? Sure. I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do think that the addition of James Harden, as you said, his passing has been excellent. I think when he leans into the passing and not looking to just force and dribble the ball over the floor, but when he's actually moving the ball or trying to attack the basket for either floaters or lobs, I think he's very, very good. He has unlocked Jared Allen in a way that maybe we haven't seen Jared Allen unlocked very often. And I know that when Garland was playing at his best and he was playing with Jared Allen, those two are pretty effective. I think Harden makes Jared Allen obviously even more effective. My concern with Harden again is the same concern that I've been raising long before he got to Cleveland, which is I just don't trust in the playoffs and the biggest leverage moments that he's going to give you what you need. And so the question is, does this team have enough around James Harden to be able to overcome whatever difficulties you run into in the postseason? And I'm not sure that's the case. Jared Allen has been playing terrific. I still think that when he plays against somebody who's physical or he's in the spotlight, it feels like he has performed poorly comparatively to how he plays in the regular season. He's not a guy who has raised his level of play in the playoffs. That concerns me. And then I thought you made a great point about Evan Mobley being able to punish smaller guys. If you're going to run screen and roll with Evan Mobley and teams are going to switch it or teams are going to get caught up and Mobley's going to get a smaller guy matched up against him, he has to be able to take that guy and back him down into the post and either draw a double team or punish the guy and score. Too often, I feel like he catches the ball 6 feet from the rim with a little guy on him, and he'll maybe turn around and I would say 8 times out of 10, and rather than taking a shot, he's kicking it out to somebody for 3, which is fine maybe if you're going to get double teamed, but a lot of times he's not even doing it off a double team. He's just kicking the ball out before he even investigates whether or not he can get to the rim and power through somebody. And I think if you're going to take advantage of playoff defenses that are going to try to switch or load up on Donovan Mitchell or James Harden, then Mobley has to be able to take advantage of that. So I think that those two things that you mentioned about the two big guys, I think are critical. And then the last thing I'll just say about the Cavs is their problem in the last 3 playoff rounds has been physical and mental toughness. And I love what James Harden has brought to this team so far. I think he's going to continue to bring that for this team for the remainder of the regular season. I think they do probably finish second, but my confidence level that James Harden is going to provide that same thing in the playoffs, by same thing, I mean the passing, the playmaking, the scoring. My confidence level that he's going to bring that in the playoffs is about as close to 0 as you can get. And I just don't have confidence that this team in big moments when their best is needed, that their best is what's going to show up. It just hasn't been proven to be the case. And maybe they'll surprise me. And like I said, somebody in the Eastern Conference is going to surprise us. But I think the Cavs, when you look at it from a talent standpoint, certainly you can make a great case for them making it to the NBA Finals. But when push comes to shove, it takes more than talent to get there. And I just don't know if they have that intangible mental and physical toughness that you need to get to the NBA Finals.
Okay. All right. I'll go Detroit. Can I talk about Detroit?
Sure, go for it.
Here's Detroit's downfall: shooting. Right. That's the bottom line. They're shooting.
Absolutely.
They bring the energy. There's two things: the shooting and their coach is JB Bickerstaff. I still going to stand by that until I'm proven otherwise. JB Bickerstaff being the head coach, I lived it. You lived it. We all in Cleveland lived it. I think Detroit's biggest thing is their shooting. Their shooting is poor, but they bring the energy. They hustle on defense. They've got lots and lots of great like team basketball going on. Ball movement. The ball's hopping unless Cade's dribbling it for the most part. He's pretty much the only one. He's pretty ball dominant. I don't know what his usage rate was, but I read somewhere that he's very heavy usage rate, and then everyone else is kind of just the ball's hopping. But I think that's my biggest thing with them is they just can't shoot very well. And I think that's going to be it's in a 7-game series when you're playing against teams that are preparing for how you're playing. That's going to be an interesting piece of the whole thing is like, how do the Detroit Pistons counteract? Because, you really have one 3-point shooter on your team. And he hasn't been shooting the ball that well, right? Duncan Robinson, like he's been shooting okay. But if he's your 3-point shooter, I don't know how comfortable I feel going into the playoffs with that being your 3-point shooter.
Yeah, you hit on the two main points for Detroit. I think you're 100% spot on. While you were talking, I just went and looked at Detroit's 3-point percentage and attempts as a team. So Detroit is averaging 11 made threes on 31 attempts. They're shooting 34.9% as a team. Duncan Robinson is shooting 40% on 7.5 threes per game. So he's shooting the ball pretty well for the high volume of attempts that he's taking. Cade is their best player. He's shooting 33% from three. So definitely not a guy who's going to take many threes. Teams are not going to be that worried about Cade Cunningham firing threes. And there's really nobody else on their roster that teams are going to panic about trying to get out to and close out. And again, in the regular season, when teams don't game plan and they're not specifically trying to target or attack weaknesses, and you don't have to look at the same team over and over and over again, a lot of the shooting weakness that Detroit has, you don't have to necessarily worry about it as much because teams aren't specifically game planning for your weaknesses. But in the playoffs, we know that happens. And guys who are non-shooters are going to be basically ignored. So you have in the starting lineup for Detroit, Cade shooting 33%, Tobias Harris is at 34, Asar Thompson's at 28. Nobody's going to guard him. Isaiah Stewart, who has shot pretty well in the past, but he's at 32%. Ron Holland is shooting 22%. Dennis Jenkins is at 37, so he's shooting fairly well. Karis LeVert at 35, Paul Reed, Javonte Green, 35. Like, there's really nobody that anybody's going to be worried about. As a team, they're shooting 34%. Contrast it with the Cavs. The Cavs are making almost 15 threes a game, so basically like 4 more per game than Detroit on 40 attempts, and then they're shooting as a team almost 36%, so 35.9. So the Cavs obviously have a lot more guys that are capable of shooting. They also have a lot more guys that teams would be fairly concerned about when it comes to getting out to guard them on the 3-point line, which sometimes that's as valuable, even if the guy's missing, just the fact that you have spacing opens up the floor. So I think you're 100% right that Detroit's shooting is going to be an issue. And then I think the second thing is when you look at Detroit's roster, and you said it, that Cade carries a huge amount of playmaking and ball handling burden on that team. There really isn't anybody else who you would say is the secondary creator. If you just look at the roster, who's hands do you want the ball in if they're not in if the ball's not in Cade Cunningham's hands creating, I just don't know who on that roster you're giving the ball to. Maybe Dennis Jenkins is the guy that handles the ball.
Mike,
And
I couldn't pick up Dennis Jenkins in the lineup.
right. And he was a two-way player, I believe, earlier in the season, or at least last year. So it's not like they have a bevy of guys that they can just pawn off the ball handling to. And so I think, again, come playoff time, obviously Cade's minutes are going to go up, but you're still going to have to find 6 to 8 minutes of time where Cade Cunningham's on the bench. And what do you do from there from a playmaking ball handling standpoint? So I think Detroit has some definite weaknesses. And then the last thing with the Pistons is, again, this particular group has never won a playoff series. And most of these guys, with the exception of Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson, have never even won a playoff series anywhere else. Cade's never won. Jalen Duren's never won. Asar Thompson's never won. Beef Stew's never won. Ron Holland's never won. So
Karis LeVert's won a series.
he has. Their main guys that they depend on are relatively inexperienced. And the history of the NBA would tell you that a team that has never won a playoff series, them going from that all the way to the NBA finals seems completely unlikely to me. And that's why I would think that Detroit shooting, the lack of ball handling other than Cade, and playoff inexperience, to me, those are the three knocks against the Pistons.
Fair. All right. The Knicks. The Cavs exploited the Knicks tonight. Karl Anthony Towns on defense was a lost cause at times tonight. I felt like the Knicks were better when Mitchell Robinson was on the floor.
Absolutely.
Than when Karl Anthony Towns. But Mitchell Robinson, I mean, I don't know, he's had 14, something like 12 points. I don't remember how many points he had.
He had 15 rebounds
15,
tonight, I know.
15 rebounds. He's terrible at the free throw line, but I feel like they're a better team. The Knicks shot terribly. They scored 11 points in the third quarter. They shot terribly from three. They are a high volume 3-point shooter. These games are going to happen when you're shooting this poorly. But I can't wrap my head around a team having Karl Anthony Towns as one of the best 2 or 3 players and having to play defense because they exploited. I talked about the James Harden and Jalen Brunson situation all game. A lot of that was because Karl Anthony Towns is slow on the rotations. Whereas if we just swapped Karl Anthony Towns for Evan Mobley, I'm telling you, I don't care about offensively. I think defensively that team is just so much better and fits Mike Brown's style of play so much more that I think they are I would be way more concerned with them, even though that Karl Anthony Towns is a better offensive player. There's just no doubt in my mind. His rotations are slow. The Knicks were running some too big lineup tonight at one point, and it was clearly not working. It was not going to work. It was not going to happen. The Cavs went small on that lineup, Mike. It was very interesting. They had a too big lineup, and our two bigs were Dean Wade and Jalen Tyson, and they did not work. I don't know if they were trying to exploit the slowness on the closeouts and the perimeter, like the Cavs, why they went with the small lineup. But they definitely had seen something on tape. So anyways, I think my big thing is, as good as the Knicks have been defensively, they are 10-0 when they haven't given up 100 points. And that means that they've gone 10 games without giving up 100 points, which in this NBA is pretty kind of impressive. And they've been doing so well. Tonight, it was not good. And they also didn't shoot the ball well. And I'm going to add this to it. The Cavs win by, was it 15-17? The Cavs did not play great tonight. Mitchell was terrible. And by the way, Mitchell had 24 points, but he was 5 of 17 from the field at one point. We turned the ball over quite a bit in the second quarter. The second quarter was kind of bad. That was our bad quarter. But yeah, I just think the Knicks just something isn't working, and I think that something is Karl Anthony Towns, Mike.
So I could give you the short version of why the Knicks aren't going to win, and it's Karl Anthony Towns. And I said it since the moment that they traded for him that I just don't think a team with Karl Anthony Towns as a centerpiece, as you said, is going to. I just don't think that team's going to win. And I know I've said the same thing about James Harden, and I think that probably still applies to the Cavs, which goes back to my whole statement of I just don't know how any of these teams are going to get to the NBA Finals. But to talk specifically about the Knicks, so Towns, yeah, defensively, he's terrible. Then you have Brunson, who I think works, but Brunson is not a good defensive player. And so when you start with your guy at the point of attack is a weakness, and your guy protecting the rim is a weakness, that's basically where the best defenses in the NBA are built around somebody who can guard the ball and somebody who can protect the rim. And the Knicks really have neither of those positions nailed down. Obviously, you like Bridges and Anunoby as two wing defenders, but those two guys cannot make up for the weakness that they have in Brunson and Towns. So that's a big problem, I think, for the Knicks. And then I'll say the other thing that goes along with that is I don't really love the Knicks' depth. When you look at Miles McBride right now has been hurt, and he's played well when he's been in this season and in the playoffs last year, but he's currently hurt. I don't know what his status is, but I believe that it was questionable whether he was going to get back
You
in
don't want
time
some Jordan
for
Clarkson minutes, Mike?
Jordan Clarkson has kind of fallen out of
Oh,
Mike Brown's
they
rotation.
they
He's
put
not
him in for a
playing.
minute tonight, and they put him in the game. They're like, oh, this guy, he's averaging 10 points a game when he plays. And I was just thinking to myself, oh man, it's cleansing. She's gonna be excited. I don't know if she was watching. I don't know if she has Peacock. I'm guessing not, since you don't have Peacock. Because if she had Peacock, she would have shared that with you. Which, by the way, that's all my dad watches Peacock. I'm teaching the world the tricks. I have Peacock, and my dad has my login. That's the only way he could watch the
Nice.
game. Anyways,
There you go.
he entered the game, and I go, Meredith Cleansing is going to say in her head right now, Jordan Clarkson loves to shoot. He came in the
That's
game
right.
and took 2 shots and immediately exited the game.
Yeah. He's not going to play defensively. He's a complete train wreck and liability. He's not going to play very much for them in the playoffs, I don't think. And so then you're looking at Landry Shamet, who do you trust Landry Shamet in a big playoff
He's
game? I
hurt.
know I
Like, he
certainly
got
don't.
hurt tonight. He got hurt tonight again. His knee, something with his knee. They kept him in the game for 30 seconds after he got hurt, and then he immediately came out. And I don't think he came back into the game after he got hurt.
Well, there you
So
go. So Tyler Kolek, who killed the Cavs on Christmas Day, I don't know how much I trust him in a big playoff spot. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson kills the Cavs and every other team on specifically the offensive boards. But as you said, he's a horrendous foul shooter. And there are teams that I know Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics love to just foul Mitchell Robinson every time he is anywhere near in the game to try to get him out. And he's shooting right now 41% from the line. And that could become a problem in the playoffs. It's not as much of a problem in the regular season because most teams aren't going to bother with fouling him to get him off the floor. I think in the playoffs in big moments, there's certainly the possibility that teams could just start fouling him whenever he's on the floor.
Hackashack, Hacker Robinson.
Maybe. I mean, it certainly is possible. Despite the fact, look, I'm definitely afraid of Mitchell Robinson going against Evan Mobley and Jared Allen in the playoffs because he has proven time and time again that he can dominate them physically. But yet at the same time, I think that free throw shooting is a huge weakness that a smart team would figure out how to just keep putting him at the line and force Mike Brown to make a decision. And then, of course, they got Alvarado at the trade deadline, who I think has been good for them. And I think from a playoff standpoint is going to be a guy who is going to play just because he's pesky defensively and he can make open
Mike,
threes.
him and
What?
Schroeder tonight were going at it
I'm
all night.
sure. Yeah.
It was great.
Similar,
It was great.
similar personalities. And then, of course, they got Jeremy Sohan from the Spurs. Look, I don't trust their bench, I guess is my point. So it still comes down to they have Karl Anthony Towns and his boneheadedness on both ends of the floor. I don't trust it. I don't like the Brunson Cat defensive duo at the point guard and center positions. And then I don't really love their depth. So that's the Knicks to me.
All right. And then we've got, but this has been one topic, Mike, and it's 36 minutes. We're doing well. Although I guess it was yours and mine.
It's two.
Combined.
It's two topics.
It's two topics. Okay. So the Boston Celtics. I think the big question mark for the Boston Celtics is is Jason Tatum coming back? Like, that's the question mark, because this team can't do it without Tatum. I'm steadfast in that belief. It's been interesting because all the signs have seemingly been pointing to, oh, he's going to come back, he's going to come back. But then Missoula and press conferences have been kind of wishy-washy on them. Let's not put the cart before the horse, and not really answering questions. And then, like, I don't know if you saw, like, yesterday, Tatum uploaded like a YouTube comeback video, like a vlog of some sort. That episode 1 dropped. He posted it I saw it on Twitter today, and it's just going through his workout routine and talking about his recovery and all that. And like, if he's putting that out there, he's definitely coming back, right? Like, he's definitely coming back. There's been some speculation that maybe he was going to be playing Sunday because Celtics flexed into the NBC time slot, but like, they haven't announced anything yet, and unless NBC knows what's going on, I don't know. Once again, I think it all comes down to, if Tatum comes back, how do they look? How healthy is it? Is he? If they get, even if they get 70% Jason Tatum, I think that's a huge plus, right? Like, as long as he can do stuff and impact the game and understand his limitations, which I think is the big thing, is understanding his limitations, and not, he can't be Jason Tatum. But then also, I know that they are and have been playing so well, like, getting him back in the rhythm. But listen, I'm going to use the Cavs as an example right now. Like, Harden's fit in like a glove, and they had zero like previous playing with each other, whereas Tatum's played with these guys. Like, he's played with Brown for so long. He's played with what's his name, Derek White. He's played with all these guys. So it's like, there's no way that they're not going to figure it out. I think Simmons' take on the Vucevic trade is pretty accurate. He's been not great for them since he's been traded. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know if they envisioned him to be the Al Horford of this situation. If he's trying to plug into the Al Horford role, it hasn't necessarily been going great. So I think maybe they have some depth issues. But once again, if Tatum comes back and is productive, then I still don't feel great about them, because I don't know how he's going to look and how he's going to play defense and how he's going to continue to, like, how they're going to mesh and stuff. But I think of the 3 teams other than the Cavs, I would feel the best about saying that I think that team is probably, just because of their pedigree, just because of where they've been, just because of everything. And if they get Tatum back, that's going to be a shot in the arm.
Yeah, I think if I had to rank fear of these 3 opponents, I think I would be the least afraid of Detroit. I think next would probably be the Knicks, and then I think I would least like to play the Celtics. Even though I think if you look at the talent level that Boston has, I don't know. Obviously, Peyton Pritchard far outperforms his contract and his size and what you think maybe he is. And I don't really like Vucevic. I don't really like their bench. I'm not sure that when you're coming with Sam Hauser and Josh Minot and Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman and Hugo Gonzalez, like, these guys are fine as regular season players, but none of those guys really has ever contributed anything to what Boston has done in the playoffs. And granted, Porzingis didn't play very much last year, but he was an important part of their championship team and was a guy who, when he was on the floor, changed the game because he could play at both ends. Vucevic is not that. And obviously, Drew Holiday and what he was able to do defensively in the backcourt, I don't think that the combination of Pritchard and Derek White instills the same fear as Drew Holiday did from a defensive standpoint. And look, Derek White's a very good player. Pritchard has played very, very well. Jaylen Brown has had a career year from a regular season standpoint. I just don't know how good the talent level is 1 through 9. I probably would take this roster, might take it in front of the Knicks maybe, but I definitely would take Detroit's roster, and I'd take the Cavs roster over the Celtics. But what this team has that none of those other three teams has is the fact that the key guys on this team have done it before. And like you said, if Tatum comes back, I don't see it being a big problem with him fitting in. I think the question then just becomes what level is he at and what is it that he is able to contribute, and can they count on him to give whatever it is that he can give? Is he going to consistently be able to give whatever that is, or is it going to be a case where one game he plays well and the next game he's kind of a non-factor? I have no idea what to expect if he comes back. I think the big thing with the Celtics, if I was to say what is their big weakness, I would just say one, it's a lack of top end talent, especially in the front court, which is what we said going into the season, and it hasn't really hurt them. But Quaid's been good in the regular season, but at best he's an average NBA center. And by the time you get to the second and third rounds of the playoffs, hopefully, if he were to match up with the Cavs and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, I would hope that the Cavs would have a huge advantage over Quaid and Nikola Vucevic if that were to come down to it. And I just think if you go player for player, I'm not sure that Boston matches up really well with any of those other three teams when it comes to talent. And look, they have vastly outperformed my expectations for them and just about everybody else's expectations for what Boston, even the people who thought Boston was going to have a good season, better than what most people thought. We're talking about 43, 44 wins, 45 wins maybe, and they're obviously going to blow by that number pretty easily. So I still think, to me, just the overall lack of talent on this roster from guy 1 to guy 9, that's what I would be worried about. And if Tatum comes back, it mitigates that maybe a little bit, but a guy coming off an Achilles, as soon as he's coming off of it, kind of unprecedented to come back that fast and to come back and have to play at a pretty high level relatively quickly. I don't know exactly how that's going to go from a physical standpoint of what Tatum's going to be able to give them. And if he's not there, or if he's there in a very diminished state, I just don't know what this team has. And yet at the same time, I think Missoula's a good coach, and the pedigree of them having done it before I, gives me a little bit more. I don't even know. I don't even know how to say this, because I don't think Boston can get to the NBA Finals, and yet at the same time, it's like I keep saying, I don't know how any of these teams, what is the pathway for any of these teams to get to the finals? I just honestly can't see it. If you tell me Boston gets to the NBA Finals, and in the course of doing that, they beat 2 of those other 3 top 4 teams in the East, that to me seems completely far fetched that this roster, as constructed, even if Tatum comes back, I can't see that happening. I just don't see it.
All right, there we go. Our first topics are wrapped up.
Perfect. All
Why,
right, we can
why
go.
don't you ask?
Let's
Why
go to the
don't you ask?
West.
Why don't you ask your question first?
Okay, here's my question: are you buying that Victor Wembanyama
Oh no!
is? Is this what you picked?
Just go with your question.
Okay, my question is: are you buying that Victor Wembanyama is ready at his age, with his level of experience, to carry a roster that is, in most spots, equally as inexperienced and young as he is, to the Western Conference Finals? Do you think the Spurs can get to the Western Conference Finals with Wembanyama playing at the level he is as the key guy? Can he elevate the rest of that roster? Is what we're seeing in the regular season in terms of their record and their overachieving, again, kind of like the Celtics, of where people thought they were going to finish. I think a lot of people thought they were going to be good, but maybe not great. And the honest truth is they've been great to this point in the season. So where are you on Wembanyama and the Spurs?
Okay, so then I'm going to ask my question at the same time. Mike.
Okay, sure, go.
Are you buying? Because some people have been talking, Mike. So the streets have been talking. Are you
Okay.
gonna buy? Are you gonna buy that Victor Wembanyama is going to have a better career than Nikola Jokic is going to have? Are you
Ooh. Ooh. Okay.
see that? So
Okay.
I saw some people talking about it. People comparing some stats from the first few seasons of Jokic comparatively to his, you know, you know, Wembanyama's offensive output is not as good as Jokic's output was the first few years, but um, the defense is better. Okay, and just some other things. So that was my question. So I'm going to answer your question, and then I'll let you answer my question, and we kind of just have a conversation about it. So I think for me right now, Mike, I think my answer has to be yes. I think they can do it. I think they can do it. I'm willing to even say I think they could be in the finals. I think he's that good. He's that transformative. Now, obviously, he has to stay healthy. That's the thing. Okay, he has to continue to play at a high level, but I think he has the ability to elevate. I think he is a year or two ahead of 2007 LeBron, right? So, like, I think I'm equating what he's doing now, and I want to be clear here. The East in 2007 was the Detroit Pistons, and I don't really remember who else there was in the East. I just remember the Detroit Pistons. I think the Wizards probably were the 4 or 5 seed because they were always in the 4 or 5 seed during LeBron's first tenure with Gilbert Arenas and Javaris Crittenton before they decided to bring guns in the locker room. I think that was you know the East wasn't super strong, so the Western Conference is definitely a more formidable foe than the East was in 2007. But I kind of equate the team around Wembanyama to the team that LeBron had in 2007. Think about who the Cavs rostered in that 2017. It was Eric Snow. It was um, Eric Snow, Ira Newble,
Sasha Pavlovich,
Tasha Pavlovich, Boobie Gibson,
Drew Gooden.
Zadrunas Ilgauskas, Drew Gooden. Like, listen, that's pretty terrible. That roster's still bad. That has to be. I would love. I don't think we've ever done this, Mike, but I think an off-season pod has to be. We take all the rosters from the 2000s of the NBA Finals teams, the starting fives, and we put them in order from the best team to the worst team because that has to be the worst. I cannot imagine that there is maybe the maybe the Heat, that one Heat year with Jimmy Butler, because LeBron is better than Jimmy Butler, that might be the one team that I can think of that would be worse, but that roster is terrible. This Wembanyama team is not nearly as terrible as that Cavs team. But once again, I want to be clear: the Western Conference is way better than the East was in 2007. Okay, so I think, and the game has changed, but I really truly believe that Wembanyama is that good, and I think that he can do it. He does not, for lack of a better word, give two shits about who's he's going against. He's playing the same way all the time. You saw it in the All-Star game. You saw it against Detroit the other day. Um, they beat up Detroit. They beat Detroit at their own game. They The aggressiveness, the toughness, and once again, I understand that beef stew isn't in the game. I understand that they were. It was a close game. Well, they won by 11, right, Mike? The Spurs won by
It was
11.
114, 103, I believe. Yeah.
But he doesn't care about who he's playing against. He's going to play hard. He's going to continue to play hard. He's going to elevate his team. And 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 I think him just setting the tone at all times is the thing. And I think back to Jokic. Jokic sets the tone for his team. Jokic drives his team. If when Wembanyama's on the floor, you definitely see a different team, right? They're not quite the same. When Jokic isn't on the floor, they're not the same. Okay, I think you could argue that Jokic off the floor is worse for the Nuggets than when Wembanyama is off the floor for the Spurs. I don't know if you agree with that statement, but I think right now that's probably the case. I don't know what the on-off stats for both guys are, but I just think there's a lot of parallels between the two of them. I think there's a lot of parallels with this team and the 2007 Cavs. I think they can do it. Do I think it's more likely than not? The answer is no. My other question was somewhat tangentially related, so I'll just ask it and then I'll let you go. Was, are you buying that the Spurs can beat the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals? Like, that was my other question. So I had two Wembanyama related questions. If they got to the Western Conference Finals and faced the Thunder, they went 4-1 against them this season already. That means you got to beat them 4 more times. Can the Spurs do it? So you take all that I just said and give me your take, Mike.
Okay. All right. All right. Let me start with the Wembenyama versus Jokic discussion. So I think if you're going to compare the two at all, you have to start with the premise that Wembenyama, I don't think, is ever going to be as good of an offensive player as Jokic. Now, he may end up being a better scorer. He may have a better career scoring average. He may at some point win a scoring title, but he's never going to be the hub of an offense from a passing standpoint that Jokic is. Obviously, Jokic is a generational, historical passer, a guy who just, by his very presence on the floor, makes everybody around him better because of the way that he distributes. He doesn't need to have the ball and pound, 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 pound. He can catch it anywhere on the floor and make any type of pass. And he sees things that other guys just don't see. So I don't think that Wembenyama can ever reach a high enough level as a scorer to offset the combination of Joker's ability to score from all over the floor and his ability to pass from all over the floor. So offensively, I almost think it doesn't really matter what Wembanyama does unless he bulks up and ends up averaging 37 a game for the last whatever in through his prime, which I just don't know if that's going to happen. So I'm going to give the edge offensively over the course of his career to Jokic. On the other end of the floor, obviously, it's also no contest. Clearly, Wembanyama, from a defensive standpoint, is way more impactful than what Nikola Jokic has been, will be at any point in his career. So then it becomes, how do you weigh out the two offensively, what Wemby can do or what Jokic can do versus defensively, what Wemby can do? Is there a, how do you weigh the scales between those two things? And I guess what I would say is that Wembanyama's injury history worries me. The track record of guys who are that tall remaining healthy and having super long careers isn't great. And so if you were asking me which guy do I think is going to end up being the better player historically over the course of their career, I still think that based on the work that Jokic has already put in compared to where Wemby is in his career, what I
Can,
think his potential
can,
is, and the possibility that at some point injuries could derail him, I still think I would give the
can,
edge to Jokic.
can I push back one
However,
thing? Can I push back on one thing, Mike?
sure, sure, sure.
How many points a game did Jokic average his first season in the NBA?
Oh, look, there's no question that going through Jokic's stats as throughout his career, it's not it's not comparable when you look at the beginning of his career. So I'm looking at, I have his stats pulled up right here. His rookie year, 10, 16.7, 18.5, 20.1, 19.9. And then in 2021, it jumped to 26. And then it's been up in the high 20s for that part. So for the first 5 seasons of his career, his highest points per game average was 20 points a game. Now you're looking at Wembanyama, who right now for his career, he's averaging in his career, he's scoring 23 a game. He started out as a rookie 21, second year 24, and then this year again 24. So he's ahead of Jokic from an offensive standpoint from
Yeah,
a
yeah.
scoring. And I think that probably over the course of his career, if Wembanyama continues to develop the way we expect him to, both his body and just his skill level and ability to play, I would expect that Wembanyama probably is going to average more points in his career than Jokic. But again, Jokic is now 28.8 this year, 29.6 last year, 26.4 the year before. There's not many guys in the league at any position who are averaging more points than than what Jokic has over the last 3 years. So I see what you're saying, and that was the point I guess I was trying to make, that I think Wembanyama is going to be able to score, and he may end up scoring more than Jokic. But even if he wins a couple scoring titles, I still think that the passing and just the fact that Jokic is kind of an offense unto himself, I think gives him the advantage, because I don't think Wembanyama is going to average 38 a game, or that extra 8 points a game is going to push him over the top of Jokic's playmaking, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
it makes sense. It makes sense. I understand what you're saying, Mike. I understand what you're saying.
So, but look, Wembanyama's ceiling is obviously as high as any player in the league. We really have no idea what this guy can be. And you made an outstanding point about the
Man, I
All-Star
made so many
game.
outstanding points tonight, Mike.
You
You
have.
said I made outstanding points tonight. I appreciate that.
You have. You've had a
It's
lot
like
of
I almost
you've had
did
a
some
lot.
homework tonight, and I didn't just completely riff this podcast
That's
tonight.
right. You had a lot of you've had a lot of good points. I'm impressed. And one of the things that I love that you said was just the competitiveness that Wembanyama plays with night in, night out. And we saw it in the All-Star game. You see it when you tune into Spurs games. You hear it when he's talking in press conferences or he's interviewed. He's always consistently saying that he wants to be the best in the world, that he wants to win now, that the only thing that matters to him is being the best and winning. And when you have a guy that you combine his talent with the kind of drive that it appears that he has, that's a pretty good combination for a successful player. And to this point, obviously, he's been tremendously successful and just had the couple injury setbacks that have maybe slowed his progress a little. And then you look at the Spurs this year, and De'Aaron Fox has been, I think, everything that San Antonio could have hoped for. Like I said when he was in Sacramento, I think De'Aaron Fox is criminally underrated as a player. I think he's a guy who is very, very good. And I think he's a good match with Wembanyama. I think the fact that you have Stephon Castle next to De'Aaron Fox with Harper as sort of that third guy in the mix, that those three guards are arguably, at least from a competitive standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, those guys are as good as any three guards in the league. They may not be great from a shooting standpoint. I do think that come playoff time, Stephon Castle shooting 29% from three and Dylan Harper shooting 25% from three. Just like we talked about earlier in terms of Cade Cunningham or the Pistons teams just deciding, hey, we're not going to guard Asar Thompson, or we're not going to guard Cade. We're going to just go under screens and make him shoot off the dribble threes. I think teams are going to do that same thing to Castle and Dylan Harper come playoff time. And can they make enough threes to make teams honest? Can they attack drop defenses when teams are laying way off them? Can Mitch Johnson design some things to mitigate those challenges? It remains to be seen. I do think that this team takes its cue from Wembanyama from a competitiveness standpoint. And so your bigger question is, can the Spurs, or my question, I guess, can Wembanyama lead the Spurs to the Western Conference Finals? I think the answer is yes. And part of the reason why I say that is, and you talked about obviously the Western Conference in this particular season being far better than the Western Conference that LeBron faced back in 2007. But when I look at these teams and I see where they stand right now, Oklahoma City clearly has been in a class by themselves. And yet we saw it the other day against the Cavs that Shea is out. I know he's not out for the season, but who knows when he's coming back. Jalen Williams hasn't been right all year, and he was clearly their second best player in the playoffs last year. And I still think Oklahoma City's the favorite in the West, but as you said, San Antonio went 4-1 against them in the regular season. And so there's something there that San Antonio feels good about playing Oklahoma City. And then you look next, Houston, who everybody kind of has been saying is really scuffling, and you got the Durant burner and the how much should Reed Shepard play, and they can't shoot, and Steven Adams is out, and they've creeped up into third ahead of the Nuggets, who are like, I think they're maybe 9-9 in their last 18 games, and they haven't really looked right. And who knows what's going on with Aaron Gordon's hamstring, and he's still not back, and who knows when he'll be back, and can he stay healthy when he does get back? The Lakers in fifth in the West, nobody believes in them. Minnesota has been wildly, wildly up and down this year. Phoenix now has Dylan Brooks out with a broken hand, and Booker's out as well. Nobody thinks Golden State is good, and then you're down to Portland and the Clippers. So I just don't know how good is the Western Conference. If Aaron Gordon isn't healthy, I don't know. Can the Nuggets get there? Houston, again, in the playoffs, their offense is kind of clunky. The Lakers can't guard anybody. Minnesota, up and down, who knows? So I think San Antonio could definitely get to Western Conference Finals. And I would say they have a puncher's chance of getting to the NBA Finals. I'm not going to rule it out. And I think the number one reason why I wouldn't rule it out is because I just think Victor is one of the most competitive guys in the NBA, at least in terms of the guys at the top of the All NBA, NBA All Star list. I just think that he exudes competitiveness, and not just in what he says, but in the way he goes out and conducts his business. And I think the Spurs have flaws, but I honestly think that he's so good and he's such a disruptor on the defensive end of the floor that they're a tough team to figure out how you want to attack them defensively. And then offensively, it'll be interesting to see what San Antonio does to scheme their way around maybe some of the shooting issues they have in the backcourt. How can you overcome that? What are some creative things that you can do to get those guys downhill and get into the rim, and kind of using the skills that they have, as opposed to just saying, neither one of those young rookie guards or second year guy in Castle's case can shoot the ball. I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch in the playoffs, is how do teams defend Castle and Dylan Harper come playoff time. But I think I agree with you. I think the Spurs can get to the NBA Finals, and then obviously by definition, if they can get to the NBA Finals, and somehow if they do that, they'll have beat some pretty good Western Conference teams. I think they can win the NBA Finals. I don't expect it. I still would probably, if I was dividing up the Western Conference Finals odds, I would probably give Oklahoma City the best chance, and then I'd probably take Denver ahead of San Antonio, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a 3-horse race. I think the Timberwolves theoretical Timberwolves can be in there too.
Yep.
But I don't trust them to win 3 playoff series to get to the finals, the Timberwolves. So that's where I'm at with them. But I think you're right. I'll tell you who I'm not buying: the Warriors. Man, Warriors lose to the Pelicans tonight, Mike. That is that nonsense. Zion consistently playing basketball, Blake.
I know,
26
man. How about
points.
that? How about that? Here's the thing with Zion, and
Oh no,
I don't want to spend.
I did not mean to turn this into a
No,
Zion thing.
no, this is not going to take a long time. But Zion Williamson has been playing this year, which is obviously tremendous for the Pelicans, and it's fun for the league to have him playing. But unlike in previous years, where my favorite line was, when he's been on the floor, he's been historically great. He has not been historically great in this particular season. Now, don't get me wrong, he's still averaging 22 points a game and shooting 59% from the floor. Zion should be averaging more than 6 rebounds. He should be averaging more than 6/10 of a block shot per game. And I just feel like he still is leaving a lot of things on the table when you look at what his level of talent. By the way, I can collect my bet.
Oh, is he passed now?
He's at 256 games played.
Look at that.
I've offic- I've officially
You've won.
won.
You've won. We're going to each owe each other 2 pizzas by the end of the
That's right.
season here. I think because I think
That's right.
I have not. I have not updated our wins pool, Mike. I've been very. I have not been doing that, so I'll make sure before next week's episode that I have it updated.
All
So
right. Sounds like a plan. It sounds like a plan. I feel good. I feel good. I'm happy for Zion. Happy for Zion, despite the fact that the Pelicans are horrendous and don't have their own number one pick. So I would love to see. Honestly, I would love to see Zion go somewhere else and get to a winning situation and see if there would be a way that he could be resurrected in a winning environment. And I don't even know if that's possible. I don't know if he's a winning player at this point or not. I have no idea. He hasn't proven himself to be over the course of his career. And obviously his health has been the biggest thing, but I would love to see him play meaningful playoff games. I just go back to the tweet I sent you or the text I sent you when he was destroying the Lakers, whatever that was, 2 years ago in the play-in game, and then he came up lame with the hamstring with like 2 minutes left, and the Pelicans ended up blowing that game. But I texted you in that game and said, "There's nobody more fun when he's playing well. There's nobody more fun to watch than Zion," and I still think that's true. When he's at his best, there's nobody like him.
yep, I agree. He's fun to watch when he's healthy, which hasn't been much. So, but
Hasn't been much,
congratulations, Mike.
and he hasn't and he hasn't contributed to winning this year. Let's put it that way. He's contributed to a lot of losing. It is what it is. All right. I think we covered our 4 topics fairly well of are you buying? I don't know if we solved anything. I'm still as unclear. I think this year I feel less confident about I feel like there's a ton of playoff or NBA finals matchups that could potentially happen. And I know last year we ended up with Indiana and Oklahoma City who nobody saw coming, but I think this year it's going to be super interesting because like I said, I just have no idea what's going to happen in the Eastern Conference playoffs. None. You could tell me any scenario and I probably would believe it. You don't think anybody below those top 4 teams can win the East though, right?
No, no, no. I think it's the top four and the top four. Minnesota's still probably out. It's probably top three and top four. I don't think there's any.
What about in the East? I'm talking about in the East. There's nobody in the East below the top 4. There's nobody in the East below the top 4 that can
I know.
get
I'm
to the
saying both.
finals,
I
right?
think it's 4 and 4. I think it's four
Okay.
and four. I
Okay.
think there's 4 teams in the
All right.
East and the 4 teams in the West, and that's it. And I don't.
Okay.
And 4 teams in the West is probably generous. It's probably 3 teams in the West. Okay,
I
but
agree with that too.
I think Minnesota's number 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you think Minnesota's number 4. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, Minnesota's like 3.5. I'd give 3.5 in the West and 4 teams in the East. I don't think anybody. I don't think Toronto or Philly or the red hot Charlotte Hornets. I don't think any of those teams are going to be able to make the finals. So, well, we got it narrowed down. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the regular season goes, and we will eventually find out who's going to make the NBA
And
finals
we'll
from the
event,
East.
and I'm gonna say to you, Mike, that I hope that your upload goes quicker tonight because the current rate it's
I,
going, it's not looking good for you, brother. So I'm gonna just
we'll
say
see.
you're at
There's been a
59.
there.
You're at 59%. So I'm wishing you luck tonight, Mike. That you're not. You're
Well,
not.
you know what it was? It was last time. It was the upload combined with the download. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
The
set.
new
I'm gonna
internet.
set the
The
over under Mike's head hitting the pillow at 1:45 a.m.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna try to beat that. Here's what I will say. My new internet has been terrible for uploading and downloading, but it has been tremendous for the actual recording of the podcast. I
Yeah,
have
we've
not
been
had
we had one hitch tonight, and it was like very brief. I don't even think you noticed it. It was it I there was like you paused for like half of a second, and I tried to say something, and I was talking over you, and then I realized it, and I stopped, and then it was seamless. It was like nothing. It got back on, so we're doing well, Mike.
yes,
I I
so I
am
have no
I am
complaints.
steadfast in the belief, and I think maybe you're buying it now that it was your internet that kept giving us problems, and it was not mine.
Probably. I feel confident that's probably the case, and that whatever problems I'm having, I continue to have. So I'm waiting for the day when Wi-Fi is just universal and it's instantaneous. I'll be anxiously awaiting the day when I don't have to look at a grainy Jason Sunkel on the screen, and you're just crystal clear looking through on your side of
See, it's
the.
fun. It's funny because you're crystal clear on my end, Mike.
Okay, Yeah, you're still pixelated for sure. So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know. Anyway, no one cares about our internet issues, but we do thank you for checking out this NBA episode of the Hoopheads podcast. So we will be back next week with some more NBA talk. So thanks for checking out tonight's episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.